Old piece of scrap rail there. I found that nearly 10 years ago. I'm surprised to still see it here. There's another bit of scrap rail there off to the side. You can see where they tore out more of the siding, or rather more of the main track. This here was the station siding, so they left that but then disabled the main track here. That's all ripped up. That's been like that since the 2000s when NS came up here to get the track to replace stuff damaged in a derailment in Athens. Again, more scrap rail there. More of it's laying in the woods there. Would have been a frog joint here. They salvaged that out. Yeah, this is my first time back to Farmington in a good bit. They repainted the depot. I'll be getting video of that in a bit. I already got my photos. But yeah, I want to try and see if this switch stand is still here. I tried looking for it last time I was here and I could never find it, so I would imagine it's still here. It's just probably buried, or if not buried, then at least where I would imagine it would have been right in there where the ties are poking out. Where'd I put my spiderweb stick? I can't find my spiderweb stick. There's my spiderweb stick. There goes most of my spiderweb stick. Yeah, I'm going to assume the switch stand's location was probably right in there, but I don't know. I can't tell. I really don't like walking into spider webs. Apologies to whatever arachnid I just walked into. Some sort of part here. That was part of the switch guard right there. Okay, so the switch stand was probably somewhere in here. I can't tell because of all the overgrowth. It's been like this for 10 years or more. And I would assume at one point there was also a mill spur, because there used to be a big textile mill here. And that's gone. But I'd imagine the siding would have probably gone off on this side somewhere. Don't know where though. Yeah, sometimes when I'm ever out this way with my grandmother, I'll make a point to try and stop and photograph all this while I can. Because, you know, given how everything's going with this rail line in general now, that it's more or less fully abandoned, save for right when you come into Athens and right when you come into Madison, this all could be removed and scrapped out at any time. All this. Seeing as UGA owns part of the line between Whitehall and downtown Athens now, that scenario could become more likely unless something's done to save all this. And I'll put it like this. In terms of uses for this rail line, well, I'll put it like this. I'd love to be able to ride a tourist train or museum train from Watkinsville to Madison and back. That would be a good economy boost, a good tourist draw, and it would provide not only jobs, but revenue for the surrounding towns and counties the rail line goes through. And I'll put it like this. There won't be anywhere near as much public opposition to a tourist train as there would be for a rail trail. That's the reason part of the Firefly Trail hasn't been built through Oglethorpe County, and why it may never be built through Oglethorpe County is because of landowners opposing the trail. I can tell you now, a tourist train wouldn't have that much backlash because, number one, people wouldn't be able to get off the train and walk through other people's property. Number two, you won't be having to do any land clearing, save for what's on the right-of-way. Like you'd have to remove all of this, like the tree growth on either side and in between the tracks, of course. And you wouldn't have to, I mean, I'll put it bluntly, price-wise, it would still cost about as much, if not a little more, to rebuild a rail line like this. Even to a basic level of passenger hauling capability. And I'm sure a rail trail would cost about the same. I don't mean to ramble on about the whole railroad thing, but I bring it all up because I feel there's a lot of untapped potential with this rail line, be it as a tourist train, a museum line, or even just, you know, something for car storage, you know. As I said in the prior recording, I don't feel there would be as much opposition to reviving this route as a tourist train as there would be if it was revived as a rail trail. Because if this was revived as a rail trail, it wouldn't be pulling in any revenue except for while it's being built. And you'd have to worry about numerous complaints by numerous property owners over numerous counties of people potentially going on private property and trespassing. With a tourist train, you don't have that. You might get a noise complaint here and there, but it's nowhere near the amount of complaints and potential crime that a rail trail would have. And there's been plenty of examples of it. And here's the plus side to this rail line that most rail corridors don't have. There's the plus side right there. It's the same plus side that the East Broad Top has, and that the track itself is still in place. It was never ripped up except for in certain spots. Meaning if, theoretically, somebody with enough money or enough volunteers could come together and start clearing all of this, clearing all the trees, clearing all the brush, and rebuilding the roadbed by hand, you wouldn't even need to spend money to buy a new rail. You could inspect all of this, mark out what needs to be replaced, and recondition what's already there. Because some of this track hasn't been used in 20, 30 years, so the steel is likely still good. It probably still has a good bit of tensile strength left in it. I know a friend of mine wanted to try and do something akin to what I'm talking about, but right now that's sort of uncertain. Given that this rail line, the Great Walton and the Hartwell, may be up for sale, I'm worried that the sale could be what makes or breaks any potential future for this stretch of track. Is there any potential for industry to move in along this rail corridor? At the present moment, no. Is there any potential for car storage? Possibly, but that's if you want to sink the money needed to rebuild the route. That's if you want to sink money into rebuilding it enough to hold stored rail cars. Is there any potential for it to be a rail with trail in the future? Oh yeah, there's enough space to put a rail trail beside the existing right-of-way. Now, is there a potential for maybe some kind of railroad museum or tourist train? Honestly, I feel the answer is yes. It would take a lot of work, a lot of money, and a lot of planning, but it's not impossible. And I mean, the East Broad Top's rail route looked exactly like this and has been like this since the 1950s. And they're managing quite well in terms of reopening their route. The biggest difference, though, is they're a 3-foot gauge railroad. This is a 4-foot 8.5-inch gauge railroad, standard gauge. Of course, the key to making something like this work, especially now and down here in Georgia, is you need to get enough people who are interested involved. You need to come up with a game plan. You need to think about each phase and process rather in-depthly, because you're going to have a lot of stuff crop up that you didn't even think about, you know. There's also the matter of raising money to buy the railroad, buy the land. There's a matter of material cost, you know, for instance, new ties, new ballast, new tie plates, spikes, rail, and the other assorted equipment. New crossings that would have to be up to code, which would include gates, crossing signals, etc. And then, of course, there's also the matter of acquiring, moving, and renovating any donated locomotives and rolling stock to where they can at least be usable. Now, Hartwell still has some old passenger equipment from its 1980s excursion trains that ran out of Hartwell, Georgia. If I'm not mistaken, the equipment is still in somewhat decent shape. It just needs a good cleaning and a good rehab done to it, which would still cost some money. There's enough older locomotives that could be donated for the effort. And truthfully, if somebody were to do a museum train or excursion train on this line, it would have to be run like what you see down in Cordele on the Sam Short line, where it's diesel hauled and push-pull style, where you have, you know, one unit on one end, one unit on the other, to negate the issue of turning the train around. And you'd have to get infrastructure in place at both the starting point and the destination. And you'd also need to provide stops that could be interesting along the way if people did want to stop and look around. Like, say, if you wanted to do an excursion from Watkinsville to Bishop and back, or Watkinsville to Madison and back, with like a 2.5 to 3 hour layover, so you could explore both towns and at your leisure, that would all have to be figured in. You'd have to figure out what to have in terms of amenities. You'd have to make everything handicap accessible. You need to have restrooms, concessions, souvenirs. You'd have to have a way to generate revenue other than the train itself, you know? Now, I know all this is just pipe dream talk, but it's not impossible if you get the right people, the right money, the right planning, and the right game plan put forward. The key is convincing non-railroad people and non-railroad enthusiasts, of which there's a lot in this area. I mean, a lot of people around here would look at this and say, oh, this would make a nice rail trail, or oh, this is an eyesore. But with me, I look at it and I see some potential. Maybe not for freight, but definitely for a tourism draw, because the roughly 18 miles of track between Watkinsville, Georgia and Madison, Georgia doesn't have any major urban development around it. It's still scenic, it's still rural. It crosses 2 picturesque trestles, 3 if you count Whitehall. There's a lot of cuts, a lot of scenic views. And in Watkinsville, there's a lot of stuff to do in town, and then in Madison, there's a lot of stuff to do in town. I've been to both places enough to know. And I really think a tourist train of some sort would be rather beneficial to both places and their respective economies. And in terms of tourist trains in general, it'd be one that's a lot closer to get to and visit than, say, the Stone Mountain Railroad in Stone Mountain, Georgia, or the Blue Ridge Scenic up in Blue Ridge, Georgia. This would be a tourist train a family could take themselves and their kids to, and it wouldn't be as far of a drive, so it wouldn't cost as much money to get up there. It'd be more local, so there'd be a lot more local stuff to do, you know? Like, you wouldn't have to drive all the way up to the mountains to to ride a train. Plus, in terms of railroad museums, well, the only railroad museum that's close to this area is the Railroad Museum in Duluth, Georgia, who needs as much help as they can get right now in terms of funding and volunteers. And again, I don't mean to ramble about this, but I just hate seeing this rail line die the way it's dying. That's what I said to a friend of mine who used to work for it. It's heartbreaking to see, and I wish there was something I could do, something other people could do to keep it going. I offered many times to do volunteer you know, basic maintenance in terms of keeping brush down on the stuff that was passable, but I wasn't able to move on it because there's my friend doesn't own the right of way. But I don't know. I hope something like what I've described in this recording can be done. And if it can be done, I hope I live long enough to see it, and hope I may even be able to help with it if anyone is willing to come forward with the idea. But until then, this line's going to remain dormant, quiet, and I'll probably be waiting for a tourist train that could very easily never come. But till that day comes, this is Railroad Preserver 2000 in Farmington, Georgia. Out. And this is the Farmington Railroad Depot as it appears today. I recall this depot has been a number of different businesses. I know the last few times I've been up here, it's been everything from an art gallery to an antique shop. I don't know what business it is now, but I'm glad whoever bought it has chosen to fix it up and repaint it. It looks nice, very nice. There's a pretty famous photo of this depot in around the late 1960s, 1969, showing a Southern E or F unit rolling past the depot in its sorry state. Back then, it was not painted, it was in disrepair, and now look at it. It's gorgeous, and I'm curious, what's the inside look like at the moment? Oh, cleared out, okay. Interesting. An interesting thing about this station is I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it still has the old segregated waiting rooms in it for, you know, African Americans and other people. Or it did. I don't know if it still does now since they're renovating it, but I know this was a blacksmith shop for a while, so the old freight house floor is still in place, but it's under concrete. And there would have been a loading dock here on this side, so there may have even been another set of track here, like a siding for both sides, but I don't know. Okay, so it's still an antique shop. There's the telegraph office there, and you would have had train order signals in front of that, probably in the middle of the window. Telegrapher's desk, station master's desk, wood stove. Because this would have been the office for the depot for both freight and passenger stuff. Freight warehouse, passenger waiting room would be here. And you would have had 2 ticket windows. I only know this because I've been in the depot enough times to know. All that over there was added on, but yeah, I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to get some more photos, and that'll be that.